let this shit slide and get your lick back. And get your lick back. Get your lick back. If a nigga owe you something, ain't no chit chat. Better stay up out the way, don't get your shit splat. Stop letting this shit slide and get your lick back. And get your lick back. I feel like I'm JX.
J-Way.
I'm a perfectionist. Adderall got me restless.
I'm gone.
Run with a wild crew, they get reckless. Young boy, come up off that neck.
Give me
Into
that.
the trends. See you lead be the band.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Corner to Copa. I'm here with my co-host, Coach. How you feeling today?
Ooh, it's a little warmer in Michigan these days, and February's this weekend. Catchers and pitchers reporting soon.
Absolutely. Starting to feel like, well, I won't say starting to feel like spring, but we are certainly getting there. It's been real quiet in the last month or so of our off season, but they knew we had a show to get to, so they figured they'd get two things. We are 22 days away from spring training games and about 2 weeks off of catchers and pitchers reporting, and we have a signing. The Tigers have signed Tommy Cale, who is a 35-year-old relief pitcher. We've been in the market for a high leverage pitcher that can get some swings and misses. We've been linked to a couple different guys, but we have settled on an agreement, a 1-year, $7 million agreement. Alex Faedo, the former first-round pick, a few years back, has been DFA'd to make room. But what is your knee-jerk reaction on this move?
I don't know if it's a knee-jerk. It's
I'm just talking about your reaction to the. Oh yeah, anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I know we briefly talked off, because it's all happened within the last really 4 hours or so. The numbers support the whiff rate and everything, but it's also just this was not a name that was on the list. I think on any list really whatsoever. I know they were still in the market potentially, but we've heard Illich and Scott Harris say we've been in the market for X, Y, and Z for 2 months now, and it's been relatively quiet. So, I mean, from a number standpoint, yeah, it's just a little curious that you're going to cut Faedo, who had another year of team control, whereas Casey Mize really did not have a good year at all last year. And I know Faedo basically was demoted from the rotation to the bullpen, but and Faedo was hurt a bit in the back end last year, but he had a good year. All things considered, he was productive. He was fairly effective. Mize just struggled mightily, even coming back from his injury too. Didn't have it. Wasn't even on the playoff roster at all whatsoever. But it's just one of those things. We kind of thought maybe they weren't going to keep, like Alex Cobb would have been in terms of the age factor, because Tommy Cale is 35. It's like, well, we took the risk with Kenta Maeda, who was a top AL pitcher that last year with Minnesota. We signed him, rolled the dice for 2 years. Granted, Tommy's 1. I get it. But, I thought that would have been enough to scare us away from putting that kind of money into, a pitcher like that of that age and that juncture of their career, because, again, Maeda, great year before in Minnesota, first year with us, couldn't have been worse. It really couldn't have. So, and we knew we were stuck, but Tommy Cale's a 1-year deal. So I got to figure if he bombs out, they're just going to let him go and then bring up someone else from the farm system.
Right. And as you said, we were definitely looking at a couple guys. The other guys were guys with more closer experience, guys like Carlos Estevez, Kenley Jensen, Kyle Finnegan, Kirby Yates as well, who ended up signing with the LA Dodgers. But yeah, I mean, as far as his numbers are concerned, yeah, he does have a high whiff rate. His 36% whiff rate is already going to be the top whiff rate going into the year as far as the Tigers bullpen is concerned. He mostly throws changeups. That's kind of the primary pitch. He throws that about 75% of the time, and he has a 157 opponent's batting average when he does throw that pitch. So definitely a guy that can get some swing and misses, and that's something that we needed. He did have Tommy John surgery in 2020 and has had missed significant time in each of those years after, which is kind of the red flag. But like you said, it's a 1-year deal. If he ends up bombing out all the, mind you, his ERA last year was 2.11. He's got a good ERA in the playoffs as well, and he's pretty lights out over the last few years. He actually got a save in the ALCS or DS just this past year as well. So he's a guy that, although he is up there in age, has proved that when you can get him on the mound, is pretty effective. Let's see what comments we have here. Angry MSU Detroit's fan says, meh signing. I feel that. He says, just like the Tigers' offseason moves. Yeah. Not. If we'll talk about the signings as a whole, and grade it out. But yeah, nothing that jumps off the page. He says, yes, since all 3 free agent signings are all 1-year deals, if they don't work, at least they'll be gone after the season. Unlike someone like Baez, who are stuck with. Yeah, Harris is not getting caught up in that. Yeah. As we talked about offline, he says that he's not done trying to make improvements to the lineup in the bullpen, and as you said, cheap additions to the bullpen and lineup, but improvements nonetheless. Also, if Torres and Cobb don't work, we have a backup option. Maybe Baez for Torres and maybe Sawyer Gibson Long or Brett Herter for Cobb. Yeah, hopefully we're not jumping. Well, hopefully you're talking about next year. If we have Ibanez consistently starting over Torres or Gibson Long or Herter consistently starting over Cobb, yeah, we're really just flushing money down the toilet. So, but yeah, overall, what do you feel if you had to grade, assuming we're not making any more moves, no. Mm-hmm. Anything else? How would you grade out our signings as a whole?
I made a comment about one of the other pod shows, Instagrams, about the projected WARs for this year, and I'm not entirely sold on Gleiber. We noted all of his deficiencies last year and his inability, flat out refusal to move when they acquired someone else from the infield via trade. He basically was like, fuck you, I'm not moving. Second base is mine, even though he was arguably almost unarguably the worst rated defensive second baseman to start at least X amount of games in a season that year. So it's like, well, all right, all things considered, all the few that we had, I mean, I might be over. I don't know. I give it about a C at best, honestly. Just to what angry MSU Detroit fan said, meh. We made no legitimate power bat moves to help round out this lineup, and and again, if I'm Scooble, I'm thinking we got a whole lot of emptiness. I don't, so, and I think it's going to be unfairly put on the young core again this year to produce. We saw a lot of the growing pains last year. Have they made enough improvements during that run and then the playoffs to carry that through in the offseason to get off to a good start? Because I really don't know if we can able to repeat even 80% of a hole we started in last year and still expect the same outcome and getting the playoffs. That's just an extremely tall ask to order in that regard. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you kind of took the thoughts right out of my mouth, out of my mind, as far as the pressure being put on the young core to kind of remake some of the magic. I mean, I think that when you talk about checking boxes, I think we did check some boxes. We did need in a vacuum when you talk about replacing essentially, because Cole Keith's bat's still going to be there. When you're replacing a Gleyber Torres with the Spencer Torkelson hole, I think there is an improvement there. I guess we don't really add an additional power right-handed bat because that's kind of what Torkelson, tried to be. But I think that Yeah, it's just kind of another stopgap option. Hopefully, him being more experienced can provide some type of stability there. We needed an innings eater. There's still a if factor of whether or not Alex Cobb can stay healthy. That's what his historical mo has been. And, he's only 1 year removed from an all-star season, so um, we can look at it like that could be a improvement as well. And then you bring in a guy like Tommy Caley today. We didn't have many guys that could get swing and miss stuff. Swing and miss stuff. And as I said, in the text thread, that Savant page is redder than a fire hydrant. Like, there's a lot of swing and miss, a lot of low expected batting average, a lot of low expected on base average, low exit velocity. You're not just gonna smack this guy all over the park. He does have a high walk rate, but you expect that from a guy that has some pretty dynamic stuff. So we'll see. But I think that as far as what we look to improve on, I think that we made an effort. We did. We're not going in there with the exact same lineup and players. So and we're also having to DFA guys that were in the mix last year, and that's what happens when you get better. So we'll see. But yeah, I think as far as grading out the free agencies thus far, we're in that C range. Let's get to the comments, and then we're going to get to the first break. Yes, angry MSU Detroit fan. So news has been going around that the Mets are interested in Spencer Torkelson. We're definitely going to touch on that today. Next year, we hope prospects like Hyu Lee or Kevin McGonigal could be MLB ready. Yeah, absolutely. If Colt can have success at first, maybe we can have Young back to second base. We can have a full-time third base. Yeah, that is the ideal situation. Is that we can move Young around. Hopefully he can get some at-bats and get some experience, and he can show that he is a major league ready hitter. We know that he's going to have some struggles at third base, and obviously Gleyber Torres will be hopefully coming off a strong season with the Tigers and hoping to get an extension somewhere else. But yeah, let's get to the first break. Right. We are back. We're going to get into some moves around the major leagues. Like I said, it's been pretty quiet outside of what the Dodgers being very, very busy picking up any and everybody. I'm not going to lie. Me personally, I was getting a little stir crazy and anxious about the fact that the Dodgers went out and got Kirby Yates. That's pretty recent news. That's somebody that the Tigers were linked to. They went out and got Tanner Scott as well, and Roki Sasaki, the phenomenon and major controversy of where he was headed. He was talking about possibly. Well, this is all speculation. I don't think this probably was not true, but he was talking about possibly wanting to start in a smaller market, which woke up Tigers fans as, hey, we're a smaller market, and it looked like it was coming down between the San Diego Padres and the LA Dodgers, and ultimately, him and Otani had been, kicking it, and Yamamoto had been kicking it. So a foregone conclusion that that's likely where he was going to be headed, and that's where he ended up. Outside of that, Jurickson Profar, which is a guy that we were not linked to in any shape or form. It seemed like he wanted to go back to San Diego, but would have been a nice switch-handed bat, a guy that has some experience on the corner infield and outfield, and would have been a nice fallback to Santander for the Tigers. But he ended up in Atlanta for a pretty plain Jane regular deal, nothing too crazy. I think he was going to be asking for 3 years, 54. I think that's somewhere around where he ended up getting. But in addition to that, Hassan Kim signed around. The announcement was around the same time that Kenley signed with the Tigers, but he signed a 2-year, $29 million deal. And the Tigers were rumored to be all in on a guy like that. In your opinion, speaking about Ha-Seong Kim, do you feel like the extra attention towards Alex Bregman caused us to kind of fall back on the Kim situation?
So I didn't catch that.
Oh, my bad. So with the Ha-Seong Kim, that was a guy that we were linked to be. Yeah, and do you feel like, with him ended up signing for 2 years, $29 million to the Tampa Bay Rays, a team that doesn't even have a stadium to call home, really? Do you feel like we directed our attention to Bregman so much that we lost sight of that option?
I mean, I think this kind of goes to the greater scope of their approach to all these guys they've been linked to. I don't want to say that they've been hyper focused on just a very limited few. But I also feel like these on and off conversations, and like they've been very hush hush about, well, we offered once, they countered, now we're on our second or third draft or whatever, which, off the rip, we knew and we're read from other insiders and quote unquote, MLB experts, like, this is kind of the process for your high level tier 1 free agents. That usually happens. There usually goes through a couple rounds of negotiating before, you get close to it, signing a deal at that point. But man, I don't know. I at this point, it's January 29th. We're 2 weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting. Max Clark's been down in Florida for almost 3 weeks already. I mean,
he's ready.
Hell yeah, he is. I don't know. I don't really hold much stock in this Bregman thing at all at this point. He could sit out if he wanted to. The dude's loaded. He doesn't have to settle for way less than what he thinks he's valued at. I know he's a Boris agent guy, but at the same time, you can't tell me if you're working for a network, an MLB network, not just literally MLB network, but any baseball coverage broadcast, that you wouldn't make the call and be like, hey, would you want to be on our desk or work some pregame stuff or, be a contributor, and you won't even have to leave your home. You could still make bucks that way, but obviously, he's going to want to play. It's just like, if we've lowballed him this point, I don't think that the fact that it's drawn out this long gives me much hope at all, really, if any, that he's actually close to signing with us. I mean, if it's us, Toronto, and Boston, or just us and Boston, I don't see how he doesn't take Boston, because they walked back their option of him moving to second. And they said, no, actually, you can go ahead and stay at third if you want to, or they could probably end up splitting time there. And that lineup is more suited for him. That park is more suited for him as a hitter. It's not as short as Houston's, but, you don't have to hit it 390 feet in left field to clear for a home run in Fenway. You just have to clear the monster. And, they got the pesky pole down the right field side, too, which is shorter than our right field. So, I mean, a little semantics there and some nuances, but I mean, if I'm him and I'm looking at these two situations, I mean, I think Boston looks way more attractive, than a Tigers team who defied the odds. And as great as the story was, we became America's team. But I don't know. It's at the end of the day, I don't necessarily care for the approach that Harris has taken. Everything's been hush hush, and yet they're going to build these VIP seats behind home plate and charge obscene amount of money, but he won't spend any. Okay.
If we didn't go out and get I don't know. I was ready to have a rant about that, because I was checking the price and I'm like, if we don't bring some players in, it's going to be empty in there, because those ticks have gone up. But let's get to these comments, and then we'll probably get to the next break. All right. Angry MSU Detroit fam. I'm my 5-man rotation prediction: Skubal, Olsen, Montero, Cobb, 5. One will be a wide open Maeda, Herder, Gibson Long, or even a bullpen game.
Job.
Oh yeah, I was like, somebody is missing out of
Job.
there. Yeah, Job's in there. And then possibly Mize, because Montero, I don't know if he's not just going to be given that job. It's going to be
I think it's his to lose. He's not in pen. He'd have to really bomb out this spring to not be in that rotation.
Yeah. Troy, I don't think it's fair for the Dodgers to pay that many people. Personally, there needs to be some way to balance teams at least a little. I don't want to get too deep into that rabbit hole, but I don't know. I mean, obviously, all these players they signed aren't going to play every single day because you got bullpen guys, you got. I don't know. I think they got like a 7-man rotation right now, but we're the first team that has to play them. Anyways, I know Harris said that they are not looking at having Torque change positions, but maybe we could have him play at third. No. It was crazy.
Hell no.
I think that's what he played. I don't know if he played that at Arizona, but I think that was in
Bro, if he could barely muster first base, what makes you think he can handle the hot corner at the pro level? Sure, maybe high school, college, but dude was mid. He made some nice plays down their run to get in and play. It had some nice plays in the playoffs, but man, when you look at it as a whole, I don't trust him to play. I barely trust him to play first base defensively, let alone third. I'm sorry. That's
you want him to play above average first base before you even think about throwing him anywhere down there. He's got enough on the mind. No. He's got enough on the mind right now. I don't see Illich signing him. I'd be surprised. I'm not sure who.
I think he's referring to Bregman.
Oh yeah. At this point, I don't even want to talk about him, but we are going to touch on that just one more time. If he hits well, I'll rather have the DH to be between Green, Carp, and Justin Henry Malloy, mostly so we could have Perez play. It's going to be interesting. We'll probably touch more on position battles and spring training on the next show, but yeah, that's an interesting conversation. I take him 3 years, $100 million, but not no 6-year deal yet. I mean, 6 years is kind of wild. I mean, if there's some opt-out options, that'd be cool. But yeah, I can't imagine a 6-year commitment to Bregman. Didn't he turn down 6 for 156 with the Astros?
Yeah, here's the thing. He wants his AAV around 40, 35, 40. I mean, 3 years, 100, that's 33 and change. That's nowhere close. You'd have to up that to like 125 or something like that, and damn near fully guaranteed, or at least, front load the first year, like what they did with Soto. They're paying him like 80, 90 million, almost 100 million between signing bonus and their front end loading the contract. So basically it's on like a descending tier schedule. The later he gets in that contract, so it becomes more beneficial for them to get out of it if they want to do it like that.
Right. All right. So we're going to get to the next break here. And we're back. That Bregman Talks parlays right into our next topic with Ryan Presley, who's a player that I felt like there wasn't much smoke in the air about it. But once the news broke that he was interested in waiving his no trade clause to be moved to somewhere in the Midwest, it was here and gone. There was talks that the Tigers might be involved in that. Ultimately, Ryan Presley utilized his trade clause to block that trade, and he ended up a Chicago Cub. There's also news that Altuve was willing to move to left field to make room for Bregman. Do you think that the trade to move off some salary with Presley has any impact or is going to do anything to assist in Bregman going back to Houston? Now that they say that it's not likely that he'll go there, but that the door is cracked open for a return.
Yeah, it's tough to put a percentage on that in terms of influence or sway, because you still look at it. It's been his home for how many years now, and they've won how many World Series, and he's won how many Gold Glove. Like, his history with those guys in the locker room, I think in this particular case may super. And who knows, maybe it is boiling down to he wants to play third or he wants to play wherever, and some of the teams initially were pushing back a little bit based on, well, we've got so and so here, we don't want to block him. If we're going to pay you this, is there something we can work out? There could be something along those lines. But if you take the unknown or behind the scenes out of it, and you look at that move, I think it might move the needle a little bit. But to what degree, or more than a little bit, I couldn't really tell you. But I think at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to Houston and Boston. I just do. We're sure we offered him another year of contract, but based on the back and forth, this endless merry-go-round we've been on, and I'm like you, we're just dizzy as hell. I don't think we're close in terms of the AAV that he'd be willing to be like, okay, you're giving me the extra year, I'll take it. I don't think we're nearly close to that. I think that's what's kind of been the difference.
Yeah, if I don't have to hear Alex Bregman's name again linked to the Tigers, it would be too soon, honestly. But we'll see. I'm still going to be geeked out of my mind if I see that headline on Instagram, Twitter, wherever, because it is a major move. So let's see what comments we have here. Angry MC Detroit fan. I mean, outfielders, we had Matt Vierling, Parker Meadows, Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, Wenzel Perez, and Justin Henry. Lots of spots and some guys you don't really want on the bench. Yeah, we gotta find some room for all those guys, which is why Malloy is already started working at first base to just give him some more options, some more flexibility, because we may could possibly be seeing the end of the Spencer Torkelson era. I don't know.
We talked about it last show with those group of guys, like, in depth a bit too. Like, JHM could potentially be moved. It's a good problem for us to have, but next show we'll get into that a bit more in detail.
Absolutely. And MC Detroit fan, and that's one of those guys being DH. And that's with one of those guys being DH, looking at the infielders except maybe Andy Ibanez and Spencer Torkelson, you want one of those outfield guys to be DH. Okay, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we got there's no lack of talent, especially as far as the outfield is concerned, and it creates, creates some opportunities for AJ Hinch to play with the lineup, which is what he does the most. Which he loves to do. But yeah, like I said, we're gonna have a whole lot of fun, breaking down the 26 man and looking at all the different lineups and defensive alignments that are possible. But speaking of Spencer Torkelson, Pat Raganzo made a report saying, and we've kind of talked about this being, because I was just watching a New York Mets, personality, and he was talking about the interest for Spencer Torkelson, but now we know that there may be some legs to their interest, especially with them dealing with Pete Alonso, who is another big name that hasn't signed yet, another Scott Boras guy. And Cohen has already come out and talked about how difficult it's been to work with him. They said that the Soto situation was a tough one, but the Pete Alonso one is a tougher one. So, he put that out there in front of all the screaming fans at New York Mets Fest or whatever it is. I don't know what happened at Tigers Fest, but that's a whole nother situation. But they may be pivoting to possibly a Spencer Torkelson situation, being the future first baseman. I've seen them throw out names such as what is his name? Brett Beatty, being somebody who's highly touted and but hasn't, pretty much a 4A guy, a guy that's, torn it up in the minor league baseball, but hasn't been able to translate at the third base position at the major league level. And obviously we need the third baseman. They need the first baseman. There could be some smoke there, but it looks as if Pat Ragazzo said that the Tigers would take a top 15 prospect in exchange. I think they said 2 top 15 prospects in exchange for Spencer Torkelson, which maybe or probably is a bit rich for. But honestly, I feel like the temperament around the league is that there's still hope for Spencer Torkelson. I know a lot of the Tigers fans, I mean, even some of the Tiger fans have believe that we may be giving up on him too soon, just 1 year removed from a pretty solid second half of a season, not even a full season, but it's a second half of the season. Yeah, probably a third of the season, but a very strong third of the season. Yeah, I mean, what do you think about the idea of Torkelson, of us at least putting it out that we are interested, we are taking calls on a situation like that, but also that we are looking for top 15 prospects for him?
I mean, shit, we get 2 top 15s. I take that in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah,
I really do. I mean, there's only so many positions we can have, legitimate spring training battles and roster battles for. And then it comes to the point where, well, what happens? You send him down. If he doesn't cut it and he bombs out in spring training, we send him down to start. What does that happen to his trade value? Now, has that become 2 top 25s, 2 top 30s? At that point, is it even worth it, to seek a trade? It's, I know we've harped on it a bit during the season last year. Like, is a change of scenery probably the best thing for him? It very well could be. I know he likes a lot of the guys in the locker room. He came up with a lot of these guys, Mize and Faedo, and guys have been around 3, 4, 5 years in the organization.
Green.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And like any other daytime job that we do, you don't perform well enough, somebody else they're going to tap the shoulder and be like, all right, you're ready. Let's do this. But I don't see him starting 120 games at first base next year at all. It'll be a platoon situation, and kind of briefly to touch on the DH, the outfield stuff, like that's similar spot. They're creating opportunities with different left hand, right hand hitters at those positions to mix and match. Maybe that does work for Torkelson. He starts 75 games, comes in as a replacement in another 45, 50 games, and vice versa with Cole Keith. But, at the end of the day, I really want to, Cole did struggle a bit against left-handed pitching a bit more. But in brief, to touch on the whole right field spot with Carey, and we saw the numbers in college, dude fucking torched, and even the minor leagues. He did just as well against left-handed hitting or pitching as he did right-handed pitching. It's just the sample size last year was so small. I think it was unjust to just default him to right-handed pitching for the most part. So in that regard, we'll see. I mean, if it works out with Cole played a lot better defensively at second too. So I definitely have more high hopes for him as a fielder at first, albeit, ball might get down there a little quicker, but, he made his improvement last year, not just with the bat, but with the glove too. So, if that repeats itself closely to what he had at the end of the part last year, it's going to be tough to keep him off the field for Torkelson.
Absolutely. And it seems like Scott Harris is going to give Torkelson every opportunity. He's in no hurry to get rid of him. But he has, I will say, he has put the pressure on. He said, hey, Cole Keith's going to be playing some first next year. Malloy is going to be taking some balls at first next year. They made a signing, essentially kind of, they went out and got a righty to kind of be like, hey, this is the power righty that we're, that might be taking your spot as well. So he's not, it's not going to be a free ride. And maybe a top 15 prospect, some guy that has not yet touched the major leagues, is not the craziest thing to be requesting of somebody that does have major league experience. He's played about 3 full seasons ish in the major leagues, and he's had some relatively, decent success. So, and he's a former, first round, first pick of the entire draft. So it's a guy that when you see guys like that, teams are still going to look at it from, hey, we can maybe turn the situation around with a change of scenery and, because he does have the potential. I mean, this guy was like the best hitter in Arizona State since Barry Bonds, Okay. All right. I'm doing too much, but, so yeah, there's definitely guys when you hear his name thrown around the league, there are a lot of guys that believe that, there is still some untapped potential that he can get into. So we'll see. But like you said, if he gets sent back down to, if he ends up struggling in spring training, he ends up getting sent down to the to AAA. Any stock that he did have, I can't see anybody it just wouldn't make sense to give the Tigers anything close to what they're asking for, knowing that he still hasn't been able to get it right. But we're gonna get to these comments. And then we'll get to probably the last break, and then we'll wrap up. I know Bjorn will probably be gone by this point, but wait until Clark makes the team with the outfield jam. Yeah, I mean,
I've been seeing that. I will only tease this for Clark just because we feel, I mean, in short, I think you agree. What, 2 years for Max? Probably, right? There's no way. I would be shocked, blown away, because he's going to start, high A, right, this year after his promotion?
High A, I think, but I think he'll be in Double A. If he takes off, he'll be in Double A fast.
Yeah, but I would be shocked if he gets Toledo by, the expanded roster, if you will, for the September. I would.
He's talking about down the line. He's talking about Vierling not being around. So I'm assuming he's not talking about this year. He's talking about possibly.
We'll tease that because there's some options and things going on that I think we could really expand on. But that is a bit down the road, and I know we're really kind of focusing on this upcoming season. But definitely, to you guys watching, listening, we'll definitely pin that for a later date because I think that is fairly juicy too.
Coach was trying to get him up last year. That's how high he was on Max Clark. So Troy says, I say we keep Torque. We are a team lacking power hitters. He is a power hitter. He hit some home runs on he came back up, but
Arizona State.
He's a Sun Devil.
The dude's drawing Medicare and Medicaid as a power hitter in the majors right now, dude.
Angry Amateur Detroit fan says, I don't like the trade. I don't like the trade a day one starter for prospects. I never have. Ever since 2017, we had the JD Martinez and Justin Verlander trades. Okay, those are extreme trades in comparison, but yeah. Who came from those trades? Who came from those trades? Just Jake Rogers. Yes, the legend Jake Rogers. Nah. Troy angry, but Scott Harris has made some pretty good trades. I would agree. He was able to flip Lorenzen for Hyu Lee. I think his first move was to get the Malloy and Vierling. Obviously, we got Sweeney and Lorenzo in the Flaherty situation. Yeah, he's done a great job of flipping a lot of our talent. Yeah, so he's done that well.
Bring talent in, ready talent, Harris.
Angry Hemisphere Detroit fan. Yes, this year Sweeney seems to be becoming our main shortstop, but they don't always work out. Yeah, jury's still out on Sweeney, but he showed us some things. He had a couple bombs which I loved. I trust Scott's trades at this point. Yeah. Torque going for another 30 ball this year. That would be amazing. I'm not gonna lie to you. Dang, where'd Coach go?
Yeah, 30 strikeouts in the first month. That's the 30 bomb we're talking about.
MC Detroit fan. Yeah, I know during the playoffs they did the hits better versus left or right. The Ibanez hit was one example, and rotating Justin Henry, Malloy, and Carp at DH was another. Yeah, it actually ended up working pretty good. Malloy had a pretty good postseason, and Ibanez had one of the bigger hits of the entire year. So good to see him back for another year. MC Detroit fan. Yeah, Clark will probably start in West Michigan this year and could end in Toledo if he has very good stint with West Michigan and Erie. That would be a nice fast track. But yeah, I mean, if he takes off the way he did from Lakeland to or not Lakeland, from low A to high A, you could definitely see that. And hopefully McConaughey is on that same pace.
Yeah, Clark's so young too. You know what I mean? Out of high school, I think physically over the next couple of years, he's really going to transform his body and get stronger and faster. So it'll be a little bit of
he can get any bigger. That's a pretty big boy already. He's not very tall, but
you can still grow at that age in terms of height too. You know what I mean? It's possible. Yeah. It's certainly so possible. So if you get taller, you can add a little more mass or whatever you're trying to do in terms of an athlete. So, I mean, you know, they talk about college guys. What your biggest physical transformation is between like your sophomore and junior seasons or your freshman and sophomore years. So,
and that's where he's at. He was in college. Yeah.
He's 1 year in technically to his college years, if you will. So I think over the next year or two, he'll really transform physically. So he's going to deal with that and working into semi-professional level guys.
Awesome. And he said similar rise in the farm like Colt Keith. Absolutely. We saw what that's looked like. And Angry MC Detroit fans, I would really like to see Clark and McConaughey move up together, keep that symmetry at every level. Yeah. That's what I was saying. Yeah, McConaughey. Yeah, it's looking real good. I think. Do we have the top? I can't remember what the rankings were as far as farm systems, but we are
top 2 or 3.
Yeah, we're up there. You got Job. You still got Young, who hasn't graduated out of that status yet. So we got a lot of guys. So the future is bright, and looks as if Scott Harris isn't going to spend too much money, or Illich isn't going to spend too much money. But he's at least tried. I guess I'll say that he's tried. But let's get to this last break and let's wrap everything up. All right, so we've had some nice dialogue on the new acquisition and just how things, free agency and rumors and trades and all that good stuff. Hold on, let's see. We got some comments here before. The latest MLB top 100 prospects had 6 Tigers. Yep, beautiful.
It's funny because Job's going to be a day one starter for us, so I kind of chuckle that he's still listed as a prospect, even though he got some experience late last year.
Just a little bit. He got some playoff experience, which is very key.
Whoa. My God, it was a fingernail biting moments.
Yes. Yeah. Which is going to make things a lot easier, I think, for him once he, gets into just a regular season start of the year. So very exciting. We appreciate Troy. Troy is,
thank you, Troy.
Always tuning in all of last year and all the excitement that we had last year. Troy was on deck for that. So we appreciate you for that. But any closing remarks before we wrap things up?
Yeah, high level here, a lot of the guys are coming back. We expect Job to take on a larger role this year, a regular spot in the rotation. I gotta say I'm hopeful that we can get a more productive version of Baez as long as he's actually healthy physically. Now, whatever's going on up here with the running and the fielding errors last year, hopefully that's been worked out because, Sweeney kind of was not all that great swinging the bat. Certainly was good defensively. So, I mean, around the infield, though, we did get better defensively, which was huge because, we had some games where we came back and won, needed some of those 8th, 9th inning plays defensively after we took the lead to secure the game. I know that I'm going back to the comment briefly about, Tommy being the closer. I'm like, I mean, it's Foley, in my opinion. He did nothing to lose it last year. And I know we're not going to beat a dead horse, but I feel like he kind of got screwed out of the opportunity in the playoffs after only one shaky outing the whole postseason. and he was great in the regular season. 20 plus saves, damn near perfect in save situations. Can't really call him a closer, but for the amount of times that he was out there closing last year, he was great. So in the division's weaker as a whole. Chicago completed their fire sale and got rid of Garrett Crochet. Indians, Guardians, whatever. Please be the Indians again. They got rid of guys, some salary cap kind of long-term plays. They kind of freed up some space so they could remain competitive and not be, cash strapped to a bunch of extensions, which, alluding to the 2017 trades of JD and Verlander and other guys, like, different situation. We were on the decline. Way too many heavy contracts had to happen in order for this to come to fruition. So they might be among the most cohesive unit heading into next year, having not lost too many guys that we didn't already trade at the deadline. Obviously, we'll be down Faedo, who will not be on the team starting day one this year. So it'll be interesting. It's just going to be the things, it's going to be simple. These guys have to prove it. Last year was crazy. Can they produce at a more regular level and not have to rely on coming back and defying odds again in order to make the playoffs? So I think the playoffs is a reasonable goal. The division is probably going to be the way to do it, because I don't see how they're going to be a wild card team again, out of the blue. It's possible, but there's enough here to be excited about still.
Absolutely, and it's going to be exciting. You talked about the bullpen situation. I don't think AJ Hinch's not about the closer thing anyway. He's all about just high leverage, and he's going to put the guy that makes the most sense in that situation. And the bullpen is going to be, down to even your lower level guys like a Brant Hurt. I think it's going to be another great season for us, and another one of our strengths that we may have to lean on early in the year as we work out the lineups and situations. But we're going to definitely talk about that more. We're going to get into, spring training and some of the battles that might be going on. Angry Detroit fan, Jackson Jobe, Max Clark, Kevin McConaughey, Bryce Rainier, Thayron Lorenzo, and Josue Briseño. And that wraps up like the six the six out of the top 100 prospects. But yeah, stay tuned. We got a lot more coming up. I got a player profile coming out for Tommy Canley, and also we might be collaborating with other teams. Coach has been doing some work behind the scenes to figure some things out as far as that's concerned. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, please subscribe to Bleachers to Speakers on YouTube and Corner to Copa on all audio aggregators. And yeah, stay tuned.